whatever, you know.
On masculinity?
Yeah.
So I kind of present a couple arguments. Like, I think that the LGBTQ movement is eroding our society from within because of the, I point out a couple things, like the fact that 2 men or 2 women can adopt children, and that's an unstable household, in my opinion. God created a man and a woman. A kid deserves to have a mom and a dad. And when you allow a kid to be adopted or created through IVF surrogacy, a rented womb, right? You buy a kid and give him the 2 dads, you're automatically creating an unstable household, depriving him of a mom. So
the degradation of the nuclear family stuff. Like
correct. And it begins right there. That's the core of our society is, the American family. So that's one of my positions. I also argue against toxic masculinity, against beta males, against all that stuff. And then just charging people to be who I believe God created us to be protectors, providers, and priests of our home.
Yeah, man.
It's not exactly popular opinions, but
well, I mean,
it's conversations that need to be had. Well, even from a political standpoint, the number one combatant to Marxism is a strong family.
Yeah.
So whenever they tried to install Marxism somewhere, the first thing they would try to go after is the family.
Oh, that's not true. I mean, China's
it is
oriented, and they're a Marxist society.
Yeah, but that's.
They're also like.
I
would argue that
they're already Marxist
like,
stuff.
Yeah.
So they don't need to,
yeah.
But they do have a lot of like conservative values in other areas, like family and such. So it is.
You're talking about communist China having conservative values?
Yeah. When it comes to like families and shit,
Yeah. I don't know. I think I'd wildly disagree, but.
One child policy is that's a tricky one to kind of battle.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was wondering about that.
But that's like kind of like older, couple decades ago.
Yeah.
And believe me not, I'm not a pro-China guy, but
sure.
I do know that that might not always be the case.
Yeah, I know Marxism has failed everywhere it's ever tried to be implemented.
But then again, you can't. I mean, what about?
It doesn't work.
What about China though? They do have a capitalist. It's like.
Well, it's wondering how. Yeah,
at what cost?
Well, yeah. Depending on what your view of success or failure is, it's probably what. Because I wouldn't want to live in China. Personally,
I wouldn't either, but still, like,
that's a human-created suffering,
Yeah.
Yeah, for real.
Cool, man. Well, I don't want to pull from what you're doing, but just wanted to stop and check it out.
What's up, guys?
All right. Hey, guys, we're shooting some content for Instagram. You got a minute?
Sure.
Yeah, cool. Okay, let's go over here. All right, what are y'all's names?
Aaron.
Aaron, I'm Shane.
I'm Evan.
Nice to meet you, too. All right, so we're out here, we're asking people what they think about masculinity. Yeah, so one of the hot topics is like, do you think that a child deserves to have a mom and a dad?
Not necessarily.
Okay, why would you say that?
I think it's up to the family dynamic.
So, what do you mean by that? Like, okay, did you get to have a mom and a dad?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so why then would you not think that should maybe be extended to someone else?
Because I think that both parents can play their own role however they decide. I don't think it necessarily has to be defined to raise a child appropriately.
Okay, what about you?
I kind of disagree with that. I feel like as I grew up with a mom and dad myself, like there were certain aspects that my dad was able to provide for me that I think would be more difficult if I didn't have that kind of influence. But
Right.
I don't know. It's just from my personal experience, my dad was such an important factor in terms of bringing out my masculinity within me, and
Yeah.
that I kind of identify myself with through the masculine components of me that I think I wouldn't have.
If you didn't have him in the picture.
Exactly.
Well, and my question, I guess, too, would be like, do you think that a man has a specific role in the home as a man, as a father?
Not every child has the ability to have one or two parents. So like,
Sure.
It's lucky to have.
But what if you could provide? Here's one of the questions we've been covering on different campuses. LGBTQ individuals are able to adopt. Now, there are 1 to 2 million families in the adoption system ready to adopt, and there's only about 100,000 kids in the foster system that are adoptable, right? So that's almost 10 to 20 times the amount of families. My argument is, if they can go to a mom and a dad why would you ever send them to a same-sex couple? Because I believe the mom has a unique role and the dad has a unique role. So I'm curious as to your response to that.
I think that
We're not judging anybody. We're genuinely
I think
curious of
homosexual
answers.
couples also have the right to have children, and if they need to provide the other gender's role, then they can look for that from friends or family.
Do you think that a woman could do everything a man can do in regards to raising?
I mean, if they feel like he's not getting what, or the child isn't getting what they need from a man, then go to their grandparents, go to a close male figure that's a friend. You don't need to have it from specifically a dad.
What do you think about the fact that like a lot of kids that are involved in gangs and in crime do not have a father in the
I
home?
can't speak to those numbers because I have no data on that.
Yeah, I mean those are pretty widely known statistics.
Sure, but I'd have to make that conclusion and review that myself. I'm not just going to take somebody's word for it.
Sure. Okay, but you do think that a woman could fulfill the role of a father
In many ways,
in
yes.
raising, say a woman raising boys?
In many ways, yes. And if they can't, then they have resources that they can go to try to provide that for their child. That's up to the family and that's up to the child.
Sure. Well, last question, would you be willing to look into those statistics that show?
I have too much other stuff to do right now, but I'm not adopting either. So if
Sure.
I was a gay man that was adopting, then I would have to look into that. But I'm not gay, and I'm also not adopting.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. All right, guys. Well, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you. What's your name?
I'm Nate.
Nate, I'm Shane.
Nice to meet you, Shane.
Nice to meet you, man. This is Gabe.
Nice to meet you.
So, we're talking about masculinity in America. I guess I would start with asking, like, what's your take on what's it mean to be masculine, and what do you think about the state of masculinity in our nation right now?
I'd say maybe doing the hard things for the people that you care about.
Yeah, it's a good answer.
It means to be a man, and then
Who taught you that?
my dad.
Do you think it was important to have a dad in your life?
Yeah, I do.
Do you think every kid should have a mom and a dad?
Yeah, I would say most people. Obviously, I think it's case to case, but
Case to case as far as what?
just like everybody's situation is different, and people could take on father figure roles, no matter who they are. I would say, but I do think it's important to have a strong father figure in your life.
What if, I'll throw you like a hard question, but this is one we're asking all over the country. If you have a kid who's up for adoption and you could give him to a mom and a dad who are married or a same-sex couple of either gender, is there any reason that you would not choose the mom and a dad? Like if it's me, I would always give them to a mom and a dad because I think the mom is special and the dad is special. And if you can give them that, why would you not? That's like my opinion.
I would say that's a really tough question.
It is.
I think it depends who the mom is, who the dad is, and who the same-sex couple is.
Say they're both awesome. Every factor is exactly the same, right? Same income, same situation. Like they're in good situations.
If it's really the same situation, they're both the same, then I would say it probably doesn't matter. But that's just my opinion.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm curious on that because, I believe that a man has specific values and traits and characteristics, like your dad, right? And did you have your mom in the picture too?
Actually, they got divorced when I was super young.
No, I'm sorry. So, a woman could try her best to do what a dad does, but she will never be a dad, right? She could try, but I think a dad's irreplaceable. Just like I think a man could try to be the role of a mother, but it doesn't actually replace the real thing, So, if all factors are the same, my question is why deprive a kid of both when he could have it? I'm trying to get to the root of that answer because I can't figure out why it's a hard question. I think if same-sex individuals were supposed to have kids, then they'd be able to reproduce.
I'm a Christian guy.
Yeah, me too. We both are.
I understand the way you might look at it. It's like a natural thing. It's like a natural.
I'd say God's design.
Yeah, you can say God's design, and I'll say think God did design for there to be a strong father and a strong mother for a child. But I also think that God puts people where he needs them. And so if they end up with a same-sex couple as their parents, then that's probably where God wanted them to be.
You don't think that like the devil or even society could have influence on that and go against God's design?
I think for sure, but I think also at the same time, you know, God works in his own ways, and it's sort of I think it's sort of arrogant to think that we can say what God thinks or what God believes or what God wants. And so, you know, I think it goes both ways in this, and like you know, you can have I think somebody to like a same-sex couple, I do think that they can sometimes do a better job than like a different sex couple.
Really?
It's all, I mean, I think it's all really relative to the situation and everything. And I don't know if you can really have all the factors the exact same.
Well, I mean, if it's a hypothetical, you know, that's the thing is like even creating a perfect scenario, there's still people who would say, I don't know if I'd give him a mom and a dad.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not sure, but I definitely do have to get to class.
Okay. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate you.
See you guys.